How's it going, everybody? Welcome to, what is this? Questions and answers? Oh, man. You know, you're off to a great start when you click play and you forget what you're even going to be talking about. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. This is going to be questions and answers number 6. The last episode of questions and answers was almost 2 months ago. And there haven't been too many questions. I've tried to keep up to date with most of you guys and girls that have been asking private messages and things. But if you're new to this series, how this works is it's literally just that. It's questions and answers. I go back between previous episodes and I take a look at all the comments that you guys leave and I just jot down the ones that I think will have an interesting takeaway from it, or just a general question that I perhaps didn't get a chance to reply or comment on. So if you have a comment or a question and you'd like it answered, by all means, please put it into the comments for this video, and I will go back and reread those for the next video. And what you're watching right now is how we normally do. I've got this recording of a piece of art that I've done a while ago, and I record it, speed it up a little bit so that we can talk and you can watch something if you like. If not, you know, do what you got to do. Keep drawing in the background, and hopefully there's some questions here that you might find interesting and things like that. I will actually talk a little bit more about this project very soon. I believe it's actually a question that comes up. So without further ado, let's go check it out. Let's read some questions, shall we? I swear I need like a pipe or something and some tea and just sip on it as we go. I also, I'm not labeling what video these are coming from. I'm just trying to keep the username. I really don't think it matters. You guys aren't going to go back to watch a certain video unless it's relating it to the question itself. So the first question comes from Luke Desade 3. And he asks, can I ask, where did you get that C-Tech pen? That line looks awesome. Or did you make it yourself? And what Luke's talking about is, if you guys watch any of my stuff, when I'm in Manga Studio, I made a custom pen to replicate. It's called a C-Tech Pilot pen, and I was watching Fang Zhu's videos, and he recommended it. It's a concept art style pen where it's not a ballpoint and it's not a fountain pen, so that your ink doesn't smear. The ink is like, it dries right away. The line is so fine. I love it. I absolutely love that pen. And in Manga Studio 5, I like to have that option of just flipping around with it, but I have made it, it's a custom brush. But what I plan on doing is releasing that with they're not called actions in Manga Studio. They're called something else. And I always forget what the actual tool or the name of it in Manga Studio is. I'm just going to call them actions. In Photoshop, it's a set of commands that you press one button and it does that set of commands. I'm releasing that for my Patreon subscribers, and I'll toss in that C-Tech pen as well, unless it's already up. I'll double check. But anyway, thanks for the question. Connor Macfiel? Macpie? Horrible with last names. Hi, Jonathan. This is about you and Enter Void. I would love to get involved, but I am only 14 and don't have a tablet to draw on. Do you have any advice, maybe from when you were younger? Thanks in advance. Thanks, Connor. So, for those of you unfamiliar, Enter Void is a website that I recommend a lot of people check out. It might be something you're into. It's a very specific website for creating comics, and it's a genre. I would say it mostly focuses on action, but some of the artists there have just done no action in their comics. And what it is you make, at least back in the day it was like this, you would make a fighter, a character that you enjoy, and you would make a win pose and a losing pose, kind of like in a Street Fighter sense. And from there, you would sort of submit a 3 to 5 page origin story of how your character came to be in Enter Void City. Or I think it's just Void City, I believe it was called. And from there, what you do is you just set out a challenge to other artists that are on the website, and you challenge them to like a 3 to, I don't know, I think it's even infinite. Or not infinite, but like there is no limit amount of pages. And then you set the timeline. So I could just say I had my character on there. His name was Phoenix. I challenge one of you guys. So I click you and I go down to the menu and it's like, I want to challenge you to a 5-page battle between my character and your character, and we've got a month to finish it. Do you accept? And then it's up to you to click yes or no. If you say yes, then okay, we're locked in, and it shows up on the main site as an upcoming battle. And then you just work as hard as you can. I work as hard as I can. Submit it when it's ready, as long as it's within that month. And then at the end of the month, both our fight goes up online and everybody can read it, and then you can vote on quality of art, story, humor. Did you enjoy it? That's some big stuff. I've seen people that are phenomenal artists lose to people that you might look at their stuff and go, you know, that person's new, you know, like they're just getting the ropes. But it was way more entertaining and the energy was there, and those people can win. You know, so it's a very welcoming website too. I just definitely want to say that. So just talking about when you're saying you're 14, I think it's perfect for you to check that out. The forums on there, phenomenal. A lot of people came from Enter Void that I know of, some personally, some not so personally, that are working in the industry right now. And it's funny seeing us all grow in certain ways and things like that. But check that website out. I recommend everybody else at least spend your weekend or whatever. Just spend the 5 minutes. Entervoid.com. Check the website out. It might tickle your fancy. It might give you that little itch because some people don't like making mini comics, or you're kind of concerned about how do I start making comic books? How do I do a graphic novel? All that nonsense. Where what you really need to be doing, in my opinion, is starting out with these mini comics, these short stories, these one and done type deals, especially if you're learning. And this website kind of puts a context around all that. So I would recommend checking that out. Again, the talent there is everywhere. It's just like the internet. You got some people that are brand new and fresh, and you got some people that are, you know, they're at that point of, wow, they should be getting some paid work by now. And then you have some people that are actually working in the industry that pop in from time to time. So check that out. As for your second part of your question there, and you don't have a tablet to draw on, what's really cool about that, and I mean, I just wanted to address this one real quick. I'm a digital artist, as you can tell on this channel, for multiple reasons. The most, what's the word I want to use for this? The major reason why I'm a digital artist is because of the work that needed to get done at the time that I was developing and learning digital art. Okay, for a very long time, I was just a traditional pencil artist. I never inked anything. If I did, it was just like with a writing pen. It was nothing, no fancy techie brushes and stuff. I still don't know how to traditionally ink, and I'll be honest with you guys, it kind of scares me. One day, maybe this year, I'll sit down and just bust them out and see if I can find a new passion in that stuff. But what's really cool is if you can't afford a tablet, that's fine. But you need at least, in my opinion, a scanner. It doesn't have to be like the scanner printer combo, just a scanner, because you need to get some way of getting that image onto a computer. And if you have to save up, go to a garage sale. I'll be honest with you, there's so many like Goodwill stores and, you know, secondhand thrift stores that don't just sell clothes but like some other things. I've gone there and I've seen scanners and they look like trash, but the screen's good, and as long as the little light in the track is fine, you can find the drivers online. $5, you got a scanner. That's really all you need. And if this is pertaining to Enter Void, there's so many people that just do exactly that. Don't worry about having to have the best or the fancy stuff. And just to touch one more time about the digital art, the reason I had to go into that was most of the clients and freelance art that I try to get, most people, when you're trying to get independent, I guess, but a small press sort of work, they don't necessarily have the funds to pay for a penciler and pay for an inker. They're looking for somebody that can ink their own work because it sort of combines that cost and reduces it a little bit. And for a writer that's trying to make a team together to get a book published, that's huge. So knowing that, I had to make the decision of either sticking with my traditional pencils, scanning them in so that they could look digital, or, you know, just figuring out a good way. And I will beat this book to death. I recommend it for anybody that's looking for that, to make that step, that transition. Maybe it might help you think and process things a little differently. Again, that's a DC Comics guide to digitally drawing comics. I highly recommend it. And yeah, so thanks again for the question. Next one comes from McHaven 007. Sorry guys, when I copy this stuff from from YouTube, it combines your name with how many weeks or months or years ago you posted a comment. So some people's names I'm kind of butchering up here. But McHaven07 is asking, hey John, I notice you use a lot of long, smooth strokes when you're inking and you don't sketch. That's always been really tough for me. Any tips on how to keep / attain a steady hand, even with the plastic nib slipping around so much on the tablet? Okay, so great question. One thing that I like to do to maintain control, I use a Cintiq, and I've told you guys this before. It's the 12WX, the smaller guy. But I use, it's like a generic gardening glove that's all fabric and doesn't have any texture or anything on there, so it won't scratch up my screen or my surface. And I use that, and what it actually does is sometimes your palm will get heated up. And this, I just want to point out as well, this actually does work, in my opinion, for like just a generic tablet as well, like an Intuos or a Bamboo. If you put a glove on or something, it prevents that stick that sometimes happens when your flesh is on that device, and when you're making gestures and movements, it can actually, like, you'll make a movement and your hand will stick and slide. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. At least I hope so. So if you put like a glove or something on there, it'll actually remove that from happening at all. So that's one thing that I would recommend doing, period. The next thing is, I think a lot of traditional artists do this, and it depends on your style of drawing. But there's something talked about drawing from your shoulder as opposed to your wrist. So if you're like me, I'm always trying to fight this battle. But when I get into drawing, it's very easy for me to just start, moving and making arcs and stuff when I'm drawing with just my wrist. I think a lot of people traditionally start out this way. But the more you can train from even drawing from your elbow and then eventually your entire shoulder, it depends on how much surface you got to move around. So the 12WX that I work on is very small. So what I do is I try to mentally draw from my elbow, and when I have my hand rested on the device, I'll actually use my pinky. And this is really hard to describe because you can't really see. Feng Zhu actually talks about this, and that's where I learned about this technique from. But you use your pinky sort of like a pivot point. So whenever you're drawing, your whole wrist isn't laying on the device. It's mostly your pinky. And you can really start making some solid lines and some solid arcs with just that movement. And try to get in the habit of not bending your wrist. It's still very hard for me to not bend my wrist when you get in there and you start doing the real nitty-gritty details, because sometimes it requires like a fine hand. If you actually look on YouTube, there's a few professional artists that traditionally ink, and you can watch inkers during doing commissions at conventions, and if you sort of watch what they're doing, you can see, not everybody, I'm just saying try this because it might work, but there's professional artists that are out there that draw from their wrist, absolutely. But you could see how these guys and girls draw from like their elbow or their shoulder. So I would recommend trying that out. Again, try the glove, see if that'll work for you. And as for the plastic nib, I'm using the Cintiq one. Is I don't know, it feels plastic, but I did purchase a felt tip for my Intuos, and I was using that heavily, and I actually preferred that. So you might want to look into that. It adds a little bit of resistance, but I think the more you draw with the device, again, a lot of practice will get your control back that you feel like you might be losing, as if you were drawing traditionally on like a paper or something like that. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Next question comes from Mr. Sinister. Hey John, how much do you make? Okay, so this one is sort of going into, you guys might get a kick out of this. This question, I was sort of hesitant in putting in here because it talks about like personal stuff like money, living situation and stuff. And at the same time, I don't feel like there's anything to hide. And it's a good question that I know I had when I was growing up, and I sort of wanted to know more about that sort of thing. So if you guys are interested in the somewhat business life side, that's sort of where this question is going to. So hey John, how much do you make? How much do you make each page? on here, and I'm assuming you're talking about like just comic pages in general. What is your living situation? Do you live with your parents or roommates, or do you have your own place? Just interested in how people make a living because there doesn't seem to be much money in comics. If you have another job, how many hours a week is it, and how did you get it? So I'm going to start with this one backwards because that's sort of going into where this will go, okay? So, yeah, there's not a lot of money in comics. In saying that, I just want to put something out there, okay? I don't know what everybody else's life situations are like. I would go ahead and assume most of you have school debt, or you'll be getting school debt. When I was making the transition, I guess, from high school to college, I went into a course called Tradigital Animation. And what that was a combination of 2D and 3D animation. And it was like a brand new school, I think, or class. It maybe was open for 2 years at that point, and that course came to my high school and talked in our gymnasium, basically trying to recruit people. Like, what do you want to do after high school? I had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something in drawing. Comics were always fun, but while I was growing up, I never really wanted to be at home for personal reasons. That side I won't really get into too much, but needless to say, my brother and I tried to escape home as much as possible. And when I was home, I was able to stay in my room for long periods of time and draw, and it was a very therapeutic time for me. However, when it came to like what is the career path I wanted to take, no clue. I had no clue. So when this course came, or when these people came and they started talking about this course, they said things like Disney. They were using a lot of buzzwords. And now that I'm older, I understand the greasy business side to it. I don't think they were trying to attract. And this goes into another discussion. I don't necessarily think they were trying to attract people that were serious about art. I think they were just trying to attract asses to get into the seats, to get them money, to keep the school going, which I understand, but at the same time it's misleading because, at least in this presentation, it led them to use things like I've said, like buzzwords and other descriptions that just make it seem like it's too good to pass up. So they came in saying, again, Disney and other big studios were hiring people from here, and it's a great experience. You'll be able to do all these things. And the idea of animation, I was never big into animation. Or 3D animation necessarily, but I did play a lot of video games. And that was sort of my, you know what, I like video games. Maybe I could like transition from 3D or 2D and start doing like some Street Fighter sprites and stuff like that, right? Like it wasn't a total wash if I didn't get those jobs or anything. But it was the only interesting thing at the time where I didn't have to leave Windsor, where I live, in Canada. I didn't have to move too much, okay? So, long story short, fast forward, I get accepted into the course. And I should say, too, that I failed art all the way through high school. And I don't say this to sort of put out there like fails and gets into... I'm not trying to build an ego here at all. I'm just trying to be transparent with you. My art teacher at the time, Mr. Bahari, I believe his name was, he always pulled me out every year and asked me, like, why, like, you're going to fail this. You're going to fail this course. And he would always say, why? And it was a mix of, I just don't want to do what you're asking me to do. What I always loved was the style of comic book art. Maybe not necessarily panels and sequential art, but I love the look of, like, right now I've got 2 posters in my room, one of Spawn, drawn by Greg Capullo, and another one of Pit, which most of you guys might not know, drawn by Dale Keown. And I remember staring at these things and just, for fuck's sakes, the anatomy and the rendering is just insane. You don't get art like this. This is comic book illustration art, and I love it. But then I would go into high school art, and some of you guys might know this pain. After about the first 2 years of just doing everything from watercolor to nothing, you start to get into like the names of colors of paint, like ochre or something. I don't know. I can't remember that stuff at all. And I would fail because I told him, I'm sorry. I'll do the assignments that you want me to, but they're never good enough. You're going to fail me in every one because I just want anatomy. I want this kind of thing. And he would always pull me out at the end of every semester and tell me he's going to pass me so long as I did like a certain assignment. And usually, I don't even think most people even saw it. It would just be that, like, show him my anatomy studies that I've been doing at home. He basically, I'm not a religious guy, but the phrase still works, God bless him, that he saw that I at least gave a shit about art. And he wasn't corrupted 100% by the school system in that, well, if I didn't do the assignment, that the curriculum told him to give me a certain percentage to say yes or no, I will graduate as an artist. Right? Like, that seems very weird, especially with art where it's very subjective, and you can usually tell when somebody's passionate about something. And I'm trying to wonder why I got into all that. So I rushed my portfolio because I forgot the turn-in date for college, and it was in a really rocky time at home where I had no idea what I was going to do after high school. Up to high school, everything was like on autopilot. And then afterwards, it's like, well, if I don't go to school, what do I do for my days? Get a job? But I want to draw, but I don't have any drawing job to get. So that means I just have to get like a regular job, which I'm okay with. But it starts to dawn on you very quickly how scary that is. And so it just felt like great timing that this course came into our school and told us about it. And I had forgotten the date. It just slipped my mind totally that I was supposed to submit a portfolio. So I believe I had like a day, almost maybe it was like a Friday night, a Saturday, and then by Sunday it had to be in, something like that. And I busted ass, and it was garbage. I'll tell you that right now. And it just further cemented my belief that as long as you submitted a portfolio, chances were high that you were going to get in, which again is pretty lame. Like, I didn't deserve to get into that course. So I'm in there doing my thing, and about 6 months into that course, I had a part-time job. I've had part-time jobs my whole life, but I was working at a gas station, and I'd bring a sketchbook, and I would just draw. If you're an artist, I'm assuming you're doing the similar thing. You don't work at all. You do as minimal work as needed so you can get back to doing your sketches and your studies and things. And I'd grab the muscle mags, the bikini mags with the chicks in it, the Maxim, all these sorts of things, GQ, all kinds of magazines, and just draw clothing, bodies, sexy lips from women, big fat people, big muscular people, anorexic people, fashion, cars if I could, whatever I could to just fill my shift. I didn't want to be there. And then an artist came in that I had no clue, and I'll just condense this story because I've told it before. He apparently worked for Marvel, saw me sketching and asked what I liked. Why was I doing this? And I said, at that time, I was still into comics, and I said, I'm interested in doing comic books. I'm in animation right now. And he said, hey, come by, we can go over some stuff. So we had a little relationship there where he actually reset my entire studying fundamentals that I'd learned up to that point, and got me on track to what I think a lot of you guys out there are very fortunate to hear when you hear artists tell you like these things. Stop looking at anime to learn how to draw. Start looking at these guys that have been around forever that everybody talks about. Andrew Loomis, George Bridgman. There's a few other guys. Jack Ham, I believe his name is. I've seen him come up. And then I've recently found the book that I tell you guys to check out. Figure, Drawing, Design, and Invention by Michael Hampton. Study the fuck out of these guys. Study life drawing, gestures, all that sort of stuff, and then worry about the style. Start bringing back in what you like. Like why you got turned on to art. Like when I look at like these two posters again, like I look at them, it's like, yeah, like there's something there, and it's just a reminder to keep around me that keep studying to understand it, but this is the polish. This is the sculpt that you're putting over top of it. I'm going to get to your question. I'm just building this up. We're about to get into Act 2, I think, Act 3 of the question. So that was going on, and what he was doing was he was actually influencing me without me knowing. I could see how comic books worked, and I got excited. This was the industry. This was it. And I thought, I could do this. This seems very genuine to me. I want to do this. So I went back to school. I had the part-time. job, I had schooling, and I would talk to this guy maybe once or twice a week. I'd go to his house and we would just draw, and he would sort of like update me on things. At this time, the seed was already planted that animation is not for me. I remember the exact moment when I decided I do not want to do this. It was when they told me that chances are very high that if I got into an animation studio, and this is for 2D animation, by the way, that you would be an in-betweener. And what that is there's keyframes and in-betweens. Keyframes would be, imagine somebody throwing or swinging a baseball bat, okay? So you could probably see the actions in your head of the wind-up, kind of like maybe like he's moving left and right, like he's like breathing in and out kind of thing, and you see the bat go back, and he swings and he hits a ball. The keyframes are like the most powerful action or the transitions of that, the most important ones. Sort of like if you think about comic books, if Batman is punching Spider-Man in the face, there's a certain pose that you're always looking for which has the most action. It's not the wind up and the follow through, it's what is the shot. And that's where I started to think about like keyframes were like that. The in-between is the drawings in between all of those keyframes that you would do. And what I hated about that was it felt like it reduced me, and I don't mean to demean animation at all. I'm glad there's people that love animation and that do it, because all art forms need these passionate people to make them. But to me, it felt like I was a photocopier, and it started to break my heart just knowing if I had to punch in into 8 to 16 hours a day of in-betweens, like it started to make me sad. And the general attitude around the class was kind of mixed. I just didn't like the environment. I was going home, right, and working with somebody that was working in Marvel who's teaching me the business. And I was just like, come on. At that point, it was already done. So I talked to my father, and I told him, Dad, and I was halfway through the second semester of a 3-semester course. I told him, I've been considering it and thinking I'm dropping out of college. And the word dropout seemed like very, like that's real. So I said, I'm dropping out. I want to try to pursue comic books. Like, that's what I want to do. And my dad was pretty lenient on it. He was like, if you and he was kind of aggressive too. I think it came to him as a shock. But it was, if you've already thought this through, that's fine. But don't think you're sitting your ass around here. I remember that line. Don't think you're sitting around on your ass here. And I knew at that time it was like I've already thought this through. Okay, so maybe I have to find a place to live and all these things. So the first thing I had to do was find a job. And where I live in Windsor, at the time was in Tecumseh, there was a factory there that I believe at the time was Green Giant, a lot of vegetable stuff. And a lot of teenagers, we would always work there during the summer. Great money. You could work a summer, make $3,000 to $6,000, which is awesome. So I got a job there. And the first thing I decided to do before I could even figure out what I wanted to do with comics was obviously keep drawing, keep learning as much as I could. But I had to pay my debt off ASAP. And if there's one little advice I could give you guys right now, and we're really going to get to this question, I promise, is if you are able to find a way to get rid of your debt as soon as possible. And by debt, I'm talking about school. And I know there's some people out there that I've heard crazy numbers like tens of thousands of dollars, and that absolutely horrifies me. I can't imagine living with debt, and I'm not trying to come down on people that have it, or trust me, I feel for people that have that, because the money you make off of all the comic work that you're going to do, it's not yours. None of it's yours until you can get that monkey off your back. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's very scary. It's very scary. It's real. It's very real as well. And this is just a long-form way of saying, well, I should say at that time too, the relationship with the artist that I had talked about for Marvel, it started to break down a bit, and we just kind of went our separate ways. No ill will or anything, but I just want to put it in context of like where things have gone since. But that debt part is, I knew I had to get that money 100% done, because I know that, like what you said, there's this saying that goes out there that there's no money in comics, okay? And I can see it and I cannot see it. It depends on the lifestyle you want to live. If you want to drive the fast cars, the big houses and stuff, then you got to start making some plans and start planting some seeds now into some proper entrepreneurship to start something up. I'm not quite sure you'd get that. I've been fortunate to make some money off this stuff. It hasn't been massive amounts of money, and I just want to underline it. I have never been in a position. I did do freelance for a while, but I was living with somebody at the time, and they were able to pay for half. As long as I covered half, which was actually very small. Because imagine if you're working from home to do comic books, what expenses do you really have? You need to keep a roof over your head, you need to keep your belly full, and you need to get some clothes, and it'd be my opinion to have a little bit of money that you can save away for whenever something comes up that you might have to pay for. Other than that, you don't need anything else, right? There's movies and video games you might want to play and watch and stuff, but if you really wanted to just do comics and survive, that's all you really need. So there's some stuff that goes with that. But in saying all that, I've always had a job while working with clients on comic books, illustration, all that stuff. So I wouldn't necessarily tell people to just do comics full time unless you know you're getting like a publisher deal or something is going to pan through. I still believe you should have, I don't want to say a full-time job, but you got to know your life, right? So we're going to just go and real quick answer some of your questions, just kind of pertaining to this to see where I'm at and if you guys are interested in all that stuff like that. So how much money do I make per page? At this time, I used to charge $40 a page, and that was full pencils. Nowadays, I charge up to $100 a page. And sometimes I float around. It depends on who the client is. Some are repeat customers, which sounds really stupid to call people customers, but they are. From $60 to $120 a page, somewhere around there. I float comfortably around $80 to $100. And again, it depends on the scope and some things like this. Okay, so I charge that for inks. Colors, lettering was always on top of that, and I prefer not to take those projects because they just take too long. Most comic book projects, they require concept art to be done, and most comic book creators, writers, whoever that come along, they don't know about concept art. You'd actually be surprised. So if a writer comes up to you saying, I have a cool idea about a superhero, does this, this, and that. Awesome. All right, I'm very interested in this. This is my rate. And they're like, hey, we can work with that. Usually the emails that I follow up with, I have a document that I send to clients if we're about to get the party started, where I provide a contract to protect myself. But it labels, okay, well, unless you're providing designs, I need to design these characters. I'm not a guy that likes to just sit down and go, all right, page 1, and I'm going to design a hero. I feel like that's very unprofessional. Some people have worked that way, so find out what you do. But I do charge a fee for concept art as well, and things like this. So my living situation right now is over the last two and a half years. I own a house now. I'm very fortunate to be able to get it. I did get a deal with this one. It's nothing extravagant. Most people would say it probably looks like an apartment building on the inside because it's very condensed and small. But I'm the only guy that lives here. I don't have any kids. I have a girlfriend. I got 2 cats. So, once kids get in the picture, I'm sure this is going to all change. But for now, I don't have those responsibilities or financial responsibilities. So that's kind of where I'm floating with that. Let's see what else we have. And you're interested in. So the day job that I have right now is I work for a company called iDream Interactive, and we make video games, mostly Facebook video games at this point, and we're trying to get into the mobile scene. And I've been working for that company now. Oh man, I don't think it's been 2 years, although it could be very close to 2 years, if not 2 years. I'm very horrible with dates and times, but I'm the only artist there. I like to call him the manager, but it's not. The boss, if you like to call him, whatever term you'd like. He does a lot of UI, user interface, and he actually graduated from the course that I dropped out of because of a very small community. But I'm the only on-staff designer, let's say. So I do all the concept art and things like that. That is a full-time position. How I landed that job was before that I was working 2 jobs. And it was about anywhere from 40 to 50 hours a week between these two jobs because I just got this house and I needed to make more money than I was making. So I was working at a dollar store called Dollarama here in Windsor. And the other place was EB Games or GameStop for you guys in the U.S. And they were both, they did what they did, but it was very tough to do that plus client work. Because I never wanted to give up client work because I felt like I was working. In hindsight, it would have been in my best interest to just do my own stuff and, my own comic books, put them out there, make some money off them, put them online, ask people to pay for them, maybe eventually make just as much money, if not a little bit less, but work on portfolio stuff and save up to go to like a convention, go to like 1 or 2 conventions a year and try to get a job that way. That would have been, in hindsight, the smart way of doing it, as opposed to working with, I don't want to say like projects like the Standard that I've worked on were a mistake or anything. No, I don't want to say that because I've learned a lot and I enjoyed a lot. However, in saying that, if I could go back in time, I wouldn't have taken that project and a few other projects. I would have most definitely worked on my own stuff, okay? So, in saying all that, I mean, you got to find out what you like to do. I got the day job right now, and I'll still call it that because, and it's not a slur, I enjoy my job. I enjoy the work I do there, but it's the work that I have to do in the day. And then at night right now, that's where it's sort of mixed up because I've got this massive project and it's a lot of things are tied up. But that's how it's going right now. If I were to get an offer from like let's say Marvel, DC, Image, these other companies, that's a discussion that I'll have then. I am interested in doing comic books for a publisher just to experience that. You only get to live once, and if I'm able to try it, why not, right? So I know that was a really long-winded one, but I just wanted to give a little personal story there. I just helped wrap that up. So we got 2 questions here that should be pretty quick, and it's the same person's asking them. Raf Felix. Felix, yeah, I was about to say 5, but that's not how it is. So Raf Felix is asking, what resolution are you using? Those lines are crispier than a Ritz cracker. So he's referring to one of the videos that Will Robson and I, Robson Inc., check him out on YouTube. We do a show called Happy Sketch Time from time to time. And again, I was working with the C-Tech pen, and the reason why it's so crisp is because what he was seeing is art that was just bitmap. And what bitmap is just black and white. There's no gray. So if you're using Photoshop or Manga Studio, by default, your layers are most likely either color or is it monochrome? No, monochrome. It's grayscale, I believe it is. So just check. Just draw a couple strokes on your screen and zoom in big time. If you see black lines that kind of go into a light gray and then to white, that's anti-aliased. I always get these mixed up, so I apologize. That's an anti-alias line. When I make it a bitmap, it's just aliased, black and white. There is no gray. So what it does is it actually makes your art look a little worse. At least it feels that way. You can adjust it a little bit, but it makes it feel a little worse. And from there, the reason why I do that is I learned about it in the DC Comics Guide to Digitally Drawing Comics. The file size is ridiculously small for a file. I'm actually going to be starting to work in 600 dpi again, now that I've figured out my computer a little better. Right now it's 300 dpi, and I can send these files to the colorist or whatever project I'm working on, and it's awesome. Bitmap is amazing for print. If you're going to do web, I personally, again, it's your style call, but I would probably just stick with like anti-alias. I'd go ahead and make the art look as good as you can. Digital is a different beast. But I'll have that black and white bitmap so that I can send it to the colorist so that his life or her life is much easier. I've brought this up before. A friend of mine, Heather Breckel, amazing colorist. Check her work out. She's done some work for me before, and I've asked other colorists that I've worked with, and they prefer bitmapped images because it's easier to do flats, it's easier to do color holds, because when they use like a wand tool or a fill tool, it doesn't have to worry about hitting that gray, because if it's a white, just say you drew a perfect circle, I pick the fill tool and I click inside that circle, it'll fill it with a color. If it was anti-aliased with the little gray on there, I fill it, you're going to see sort of like a white halo around the color, and that's because it's going and butting up against it. So that's why I use that. And the last question here kind of pertains to what you guys are seeing on the screen here. So an artist that I look up to heavily, I'm a huge fan of his work, Corey Lewis. Some of you guys might know him as Ray, R-E-Y, or R-E-Y-Y-Y, I believe, on his website. He posted a link for a project he's starting because a buddy of him showed him an app on an iPhone called Comique, Comique. And the idea of it is, if you're using an iPhone, the screen you see is a page. That's a full page of the comic. And you'd swipe and it's the next page. Think of it in terms of it's only one panel per page. I might try, when I'm doing my project, 2 panels per page just to see how it goes. But that's the idea of it. It's supposed to be comics made for phones, period. What he was talking about, I was watching the whole discussion. What I enjoyed from it was that it's a different way to think about doing comics. It's a way to inject a little bit of extra creativity. And what we're going to do is, once that's done, it'll be on the app for sure, but there's people like myself that have Androids, and it'll be available for PDF, or I'll look into it when the time comes. But that's what that is, okay? And I highly recommend you guys check it out. There's not too many comics on that app right now, so I think it's actually a really ripe time to make a niche and a little bit of impact on that platform, if that's something that sounds like it might be interesting to you. It tickles that mini comic itch that's always in the back of my head. So the project I'm doing right here is called Scorpion, and I'm still working on the script right now because I don't really have much time to work on anything other than Worlds in Peril. The deadline on that is very aggressive. So a lot of my time, if not actually all my time, right now currently, I go to work I get up at 6, and from 6 to 7, I do correspondence with you guys, emails, just make sure my day's looking what's happening on my day. Go to work, get home at about 5, quickly eat something from 5:30 to 6, and then from 6 to 11, I'm doing Worlds in Peril, and then I'm in bed. And this is going to be going on for about 1.5 months. So there's no time to fit in like projects like this. However, so you guys will find out more about it. Think of more along the lines, what I'm trying to go for is like the old 80s action films, with Schwarzenegger and Stallone and things where it's very cheesy. There's nothing elaborate about it. And you guys will find more about that. So if you kind of like that 80s synth music, what was the last video game that came out that might be like Terminator, RoboCop, those kinds of really awesome movies back then. And I don't want to sell it too much because the art and things still have to get done. But this was just, I actually had a moment during the weekend when I have some more free time, and I was like, I need to get something out. I need some artwork to talk over. But anyway, thank you guys so much. This went on for quite a while. I actually had a blast. Hopefully I didn't bore you guys too much with that long story. Hopefully you guys got a little bit of enjoyment out of it anyway. And if you guys had any questions that you'd like answered, by all means, please leave them in the comments section below, and I'll definitely get back to them on the next Q&A video. Theoretically, I'd like to get these done every 1 to 2 months. 1.5 would be ideal. So please jam-pack this thing with questions so that the next video can have a little bit more content for you guys and hopefully help you out. And I just wanted to give one more announcement here. Most of my live streams have been, all of my live streams have been through the website livestream.com. I'm no longer using that service. A few of you have reached out to me and showed me a much far superior service, in my opinion, called Picarto, Picarto.tv. And if you go to my website, jonathanrector.com, at the top, you can see a link. It says Picarto/live streams. Click that, and there's a link that'll take you right there, so you don't got to worry about getting confused or anything. And the show's every Wednesday, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But the beautiful thing with Picarto is, if you're interested in following my streams, there's a follow button. So anytime I go streaming, you'll automatically get an email letting you know if it's something you're interested in. Just today, I went on That's Not Wednesday because I needed a little extra focus to just punch through the work that I had to do for the day. And just click that, put some music on, talk to you guys in the chat, and I had a blast. So you guys should check that out if you're interested. And again, thank you to all the people that are supporting me on Patreon. You guys are amazing, and I love you to death. And if you wanted to be a supporter, please, by all means, check patreon.com/JonathanRector. So without further ado, I will let you guys go. I appreciate your time. And like usual, guys, keep reading comics, keep making comics, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.